The third one is, I suspect that many people in the room have been trained or are training as designers. And I just wonder how many are trained in briefing and in evaluating what's actually needed as opposed to what the possible solution could be. I trained quite a long time ago and there was absolutely zero.
Briefing from whose point of view? Brief from who?
Writing a brief.
Writing a brief.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think I can only talk about really where I think briefs come from in Herman Miller and other companies that we work for. There's there's three kinds of companies. There's companies that need strategic help. Those are companies who don't know, they know they need something, but they don't know what they need. They can't write a brief, but they know they need something, right? Clients typically can't write a brief. So then you have to go to somebody who can help you ask yourself the right questions, right? Then there's companies who know they have a problem and they write a brief about the problem. And very often, as I described before, our response to that is to listen very intently to that brief, but also connect what I describe as their rose-colored glasses, because the brief usually comes out of company point of view. It doesn't necessarily come out of a worldly point of view, right? And I think design's responsibility is to connect the company point of view to the world. And I don't mean that just from a how is the product bought to how is it used, how is it lived with, how is it made, all those questions. And then there's the last kind of company which doesn't need anything, thinks it doesn't need anything, but knows it needs a new something. Yeah? And then they come to the designer and they ask for us to have a more, what I would call a more artistic response, because nothing's actually needed. We don't really need another chair, but we're really good at making them, for instance. And we need to have another one because that's our mechanism, that's our business strategy kind of thing. So I think briefs are multidimensional. That's why I asked who's the brief coming from. But from Herman Miller, I know Herman Miller doesn't talk about what they do as much as we would like them to talk, as I particularly would like to. They actually do a lot of research. They are, I think you would probably expect them to be top of their game about what's happening in the workplace, what's happening at work. That's why they engage with educational institutions. That's why they talk to designers across the world. That's why they distribute around the world. But they don't necessarily say, they do it in the chairs, actually. They say in the chairs, we've done the research, here are the statistics, because chairs are kind of, the ergonomics and chairs are quantifiable. But they can't do it for systems, and systems, quote unquote. And they can't do it for bigger planning or strategic planning. So they tend not to talk about the research they've done. But I can vouch for it. It's there, and it's very, very deep. I think that is a cultural thing. That is a company that has a culture of that is steeped in what they've done historically. That's a beautiful thing. I'm saying that's a very positive thing. I wish that was more available to the public. I wish the public knew that they really are experts and they really can rely on them and count on them. Yeah, they prove that in their products, right? But they don't tend to say, and it's backed up by our amazing research.
I think the briefing thing is a really interesting issue, because when I was editing Design Week in the late 1980s, I used to go and see companies, and there'd be a new CEO, and we always used to laugh when somebody took over a major retailer or a major energy company. There's going to be a new logo any minute, and sure enough, Landor or Wolf-Olins, there'd be the new logo, and the chief executive would get involved, and we'd get a quote from the magazine, and they'd agonize over this damn logo. Meanwhile, they moved 1,500 staff from one campus to another, and you ring up the chief executive's office and say, well, tell us about the campus move and this new office building you've got. And they go, office building? Well, we get our buildings and estates people to do that. And I think what happened, and why I'm encouraged about the future, is that in the past, office design has been commissioned around the ankles of the organization. Very junior people have been managing it, whereas the logo, my God, it's got to be the chief executive. Now, I think more senior people have understood that workspace is an investment and not just a cost. It's an important part of the productivity and well-being of the organization. And I've seen progressively the commissioning of office buildings get higher up the organisation, and that can only be good. But I still think that the brief making process is in its infancy within architectural education, which is still deficient.
I think that's an interesting point about a company.
Yeah.
Just one more point about a company culture, because I think wherever you cut the company, it should look the same on the inside. So it should be the same if you're spending a lot on your logo to make it which is the public facing thing, or the product, which is the public facing thing. If you cut your workspace, how are your people? You know, how are you treating your people? That's what I mean about culture. You know, that's.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. The brand, which is about the values of the business,
Yeah.
isn't just the colour of the logo.
Exactly.
It's actually about the way it operates.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have time for a couple more questions. If I
Yeah,
could
there's
ask
one
you to
here,
keep
there's
them
one there
brief,
as
that
well.
would be great. If we